control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Lives to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot.
Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at spacedoutradio.com, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Game on! Game on! Game on!
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
The password is...
Alright.
Okay, seriously, what's with the pointies?
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
Seriously, Dave? Really?
Hi, Chloe. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Captain, take your seat on my left. It's time for takeoff.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, start, 2, 1, boost ignition, and liftoff.
Just to be there with you, and I still trip over my feet, and my heart still skips a beat. I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's great to have you along for the ride wherever you are on this great planet we love to call Earth. We are live right here, right now at Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here, literally in the frozen Great White North, minus 24 right now where I am, and that's in Celsius. Yes, we are live on this Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning if you're on the East Coast. We welcome in everyone listening in on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. We do this thing every night of the week, rocking in and out of every show, thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Yes, Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Hey, if you're a social media junkie like I am, follow me on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes, and of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. If you want to take part in this show, you know we don't take callers, so you'll have to sign in to one of the chat rooms if you want to participate, either on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club, or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. If you haven't gone to our website and signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet, I'm going to tell you right now, it is time. $5 a month. Your name gets entered into monthly prize draws. You get access to private group interviews, access to a special posting section on our website, and much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, you can read up on my latest blog, which is about orphan listeners. You can check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest and weird news. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, head to our website, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Mike Schmidt is ready for you to find out what's going on. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Yes, we are proud to be broadcasting live to you. We are also live in Sin City. Yes, Renegade Talk Radio broadcasting the night out of Las Vegas. And of course, if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Nancy Du Tertre is a woman who has many hats. From attorney to psychic detective, Nancy is all-encompassed in the realm of the paranormal as well. It's a tough gig because the paranormal tree has so many offshoots from it to choose from. From helping the police with cold case files to studying the phenomena of alien abduction and contact, it's the mysteries of the world that keep Nancy in the search for what's going on. It's a very busy life for Nancy, but she really wouldn't have it any other way. She loves hearing the stories and the experiences people are having. In her words, like she told me earlier, it's about trying to get closer to the answer to these questions, and every story brings us a little bit closer. It's the personal gifts that she has which help draw her closer to these answers. But are we getting any closer to solving this riddle we love to call life? Life after death? The dead helping solve crimes? Alien contact? Man, I'd love to go into her library of study. It must be incredible. Nancy, we welcome you into Spaced Out Radio now. Good evening. How are you?
Good. A lot warmer than you are, though.
Yes, it is frigid outside. It is very frigid. This morning, I have two jobs. I have my daytime job, and then I peruse the night, playing radio host here. And this morning, I woke up, it was minus 27 degrees Celsius. That's cold.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
that is cold.
Yeah, that's the type of cold where the minute literally your fingers start to blazingly hurt after about a minute in that weather. It hurts. I never knew before I moved up here into the middle of nowhere in British Columbia. I never knew what cold was. Well, I got a good introduction about a year ago when we moved up here, and, I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. It's all right.
The way I look at it, as long as the world is still cold every once in a while, things are good.
Absolutely. And it does have its own stunning beauty when the frost starts to build off itself on tree branches and everything. It does have its own share of beauty. So that's
I agree.
Cool. Yes,
I agree.
Absolutely. But this show is all about you, because this is your life, Nancy. No, I'm kidding.
But I like the idea about a paranormal tree. I never thought of it that way. But that's actually quite beautiful. I like that because all of these different topics, as I have learned, very slowly, because I think I'm pretty...
Absolutely. And I never thought about that until I met a gentleman named Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal down in Washington State. And him and I had lengthy discussions on it. He kept hammering it into me. Dave, everything is paranormal. UFOs, aliens, Bigfoot, cryptids. It's all paranormal because we don't really understand it. And I never really thought about that until he brought it to my attention. So I give him all the credit for that. And when you are branching off into the paranormal tree, you wear many different hats. And I'm actually quite amazed to learn that by you. So as a lawyer, what is the reaction your fellow attorneys give you when you tell them that you're in this type of study in your spare time?
Or people are absolutely intrigued. But I don't shy away from it anymore because I figure what I'm doing is, my job is to teach particularly left-brain people how to think differently, and that thinking differently is a reality in this world. And I mean, once I became a trained psychic detective and medium remote viewer and all that kind of stuff, I actually became a better lawyer because I became quicker with my intuitions, and I would pick up things, for example, I would find that they'd be missing in documents that were supposed to be formal documents that were going to be filed forever and ever, and if you screwed it up, it was going to be there in the record permanently. So I was catching things faster. I was able to negotiate things better. And so all of my psychic trained abilities came in really handy. So I think if you just are out there and you just kind of go about your business and you just prove to people that these kinds of skills are useful, after a while they're not going to question you.
Nancy, I understand that they're not going to question you if you believe in the topic and everything. And one of the things that I have really tried to do, because not only am I a journalist, I'm an experiencer as well. And I've had a lot of people actually come up to me and say, geez, how don't you fear telling your stories? Don't you fear trying to, explain yourself to people who maybe don't believe or are just not into these topics, because it is kind of a taboo subject still in today's day and age? I mean, hell, we can talk about everything from sex, drug, and violence, but I mean, you talk about aliens and ghosts and you're like a pariah. You know what I'm saying? Even though most people have had some sort of experience. So when you're having that discussion, do you feel at a point in your life now that you're comfortable to talk about these topics no matter where you are?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I sit on my local government, and I was very clear with all of the different people involved in local politics. I told them exactly what I do, and I know that some of them, particularly I would say more like the old guard, were a little bit freaked out by that because, what's the general population going to think? But ultimately, they've been able to see that I'm as left-brained, if not more so, than a lot of them. I can analyze stuff. I can, make voting decisions that are totally rational. So having this ability doesn't get in the way. It only enhances what I do. So people sort of forget about it. So I don't have a problem with it.
So what got you into this field? Was it a personal experience? I know you're very psychically intuitive, but has this been a lifelong inquest for you?
No. I'm not a natural psychic. I had only a couple of strange experiences growing up, but I didn't grow up, I wasn't one of the, those kids who, by the age of 3, they're seeing and interacting with the spirits of deceased people, or, predicting the future, or seeing auras, or any of that stuff. It didn't exist as far as I was concerned. And as far as my family was concerned, there's nobody psychic in my family. And they don't believe in that kind of stuff. So it wasn't until... Actually, I didn't get into it because of an experience. I had a very intense mediumship experience in a psychology training course, but I disregarded it. I mean, I said, well, that's weird, or that's a fluke. I don't know, how I figured out that there was a spirit in the room, and I was able to give information. But it was really because I was interested in writing a book about the psychology of intuition. And I got so frustrated trying to find people in psychology who would be interested in intuition, because nobody was, and they were calling it other things like transference or countertransference or empathy or stuff like that. So nobody was truly interested in it, and I studied a bunch of neuroscience. I thought maybe those people would have some idea how you can look at intuition as almost like an architectural thing inside the brain, and they were absolutely not interested because it was too subjective of an experience to be able to quantify. So then I ended up just talking to anybody who had any type of experience with intuition, and that meant for the first time in my life, I was talking to psychics and mediums and psychic detectives and medical intuitives and, all kinds of people, including also, intelligence people, military people, poker players, artists, alternative healthcare people. I mean, just anybody and everybody. You could tell me anything about intuition. And it was at that point I started to train. And I was apprenticed for about close to a decade to a well-known psychic detective, because I realized you can't learn psychic type of intuition unless you experience it. And you can't talk about it, or you can't teach it like an academic subject. You have to walk through it. And so that's what I did. And once I spent a whole lot of time and energy doing that, I finally realized I had some skill. And so my whole point in everything that I do is to try and explain to people that we all have these abilities. They get unlearned. And I've written 5 books. In one of my books called Psychic Intuition, Everything You Ever Wanted to Ask But Were Afraid to Know, I go into really explaining what psychic ability is and how we lose it and how we can get it back. So that's sort of been my journey, my roundabout journey.
It's something that for a lot of us, the whole phenomena of the paranormal, whether it's intuition, whether it's experiences of UFOs or ghostly experiences, when they hit, especially at a later age, rather than childhood or the teenage years, it's tough to really understand because you're trying to look at these topics at an adult level. And trust me when I say this, as a journalist, when I started having my own experiences, you wouldn't believe the plethora of questions that all of a sudden would come into my head. It literally had me researching until all hours of the night. And I remember my wife saying to me, are you going to go to sleep? Because here I am lying in bed with my laptop and my headphones in, trying to figure out if I could find something on YouTube, on Google, on any type of programming that I could find, or in books, anything that resembled what I was experiencing. And unfortunately for me, I could never find that muse that was something similar to what I was going through. So do you find that with older people, let's say from their late 30s on up, comparatively to those in their 20s, teens, and childhood, have a tougher time accepting what is going on, even though the maturity level is much different?
I don't really see it as an age issue, honestly. I see it more like it's more like, the old story about the emperor's new clothes. The emperor goes out with no clothes on, but everybody in the public has to sort of, they're also shocked, but there's like peer pressure to sort of assume that he must be wearing clothes because he couldn't possibly be naked. And so everybody says, oh, yeah, he's wearing clothes. Oh, beautiful clothes, beautiful. Well, that's kind of the same way it is with the way that people treat conversations about paranormal things or UFO things. Everybody feels like, oh, yeah, there must be peer pressure because, of course, nobody in society really believes this stuff. We all know that. But they'll all, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, they will all, almost every single one of them, pull you aside privately, and everybody will tell you a story. And if they don't have a personal story, they know at least one person, usually several, who do. And so they have tons of questions, but there's the peer pressure factor, the embarrassment factor, of admitting that you're actually interested in this stuff or that you may actually believe it. So it's in terms of an age thing, I don't really see that. I see it more as actually, I think people, as they get older, they get a little bit more open to the weirdness in life. I think when you're young, you're like exploring everything, but there are limits, and there's a lot of pressure to conform, and because you're trying to make your way through life and impress other people, and you get to a certain point. I mean, I'm at a certain point. I don't care what anybody thinks, and why should I? I mean, do you?
I don't care anymore. I told a deeply religious man today, him and I went out for lunch, that everything that's happened to me over the last 5 years. And you know what? I'm glad that he knew that I was telling the truth. And I'm glad that he knew that, he said everybody's experiences are quite phenomenally different. He goes, who am I to sit here and say that you haven't experienced what you've experienced? I think it's a matter of understanding that everybody, like you said, has had an experience or knows someone. And once you break out of that shell thinking, oh, I'm taboo, I'm doing something wrong here, I probably shouldn't be discussing this matter. And once you just get it out into the open and say, hey, I'm an experiencer. I've seen aliens. I've seen UFOs up close and personal. I've seen Bigfoot. I'm psychic, or whatever it could be. It's relieving to your own psyche as well, is it not?
Absolutely, because anything that you have to keep secret, regardless of what it is, it takes a huge amount of energy. So once you are able to release that, it's fantastic for people. And by the way, I think one thing that's also helped me kind of walk through this process is that I've done more than 20 years of training in intuitive Gestalt psychotherapy. So I have, I've explored on a purely psychological level really these incredible depths that we have and different layers of consciousness. And also I have a certain understanding of insanity. And I think it's really important because when you get into this field, all of a sudden it gets really difficult to decide what's crazy and what's not. And there are crazy folks that come out of the woodwork, as well as unbelievably sane, sober, and talented, smart people who've had these really unusual experiences. So you have to kind of weed through what's really real and, what exists solely in somebody's fantasy land. But when you're exploring different levels of consciousness, which you are definitely doing when you're getting involved in anything psychic or even in the UFO field, tremendously, because, there's theories that even, what people experience as being, sightings of physical spacecraft or, actual face-to-face experiences with entities, that there may be a level of the manipulation of the conscious mind involved. So you get into these kind of dangerous areas where it gets really hard to make purely objective judgments. So having a background in understanding human behavior, human intentions, and desires and expressions and consciousness is really helpful when you go into this.
What do you prefer to do in this field? Do you prefer the psychic detective work? Do you prefer working with alien contactees? Do you prefer dealing with ghosts and the paranormal? What's your muse in this?
Oh my goodness. I totally love all of it. I really do. And I don't even know that I could tell you what my favorite thing is. I know that the thing that has, I can really only say that my only, I guess maybe purely natural skill, if you can even call it that, is what I do sort of medically intuitively or with energy healing work. And because I never got trained in that. And I love trying to help people. So that, when you're doing that type of work, where you're trying to help people who are really suffering, I don't know, I get a whole lot of gratification out of that. But, when you're doing psychic detective work, you are, particularly if you're working with the families of the victims, you're doing a different type of healing. And it's really, it's service. It's a type of service. So all of these different areas. And you get into the UFO field, which for me has been really fascinating. And I guess a lot of me has just gotten really intrigued by it because there's such mysteries involved, and I really do want to know the answers. You have a lot of people who have gone through abduction experiences, and of course I know plenty, and some of them really suffer from that. They either suffer because it was a really frightening experience, or it was a painful experience, or because they can't share it with anybody. And so it stays this kind of a terrible secret. So in a lot of ways, there's healing to be done in that field as well. So I get a kick out of all that. And, even, I'll give you another example. Talking about dealing with ghosts and spirits, I recently, I wrote I do a monthly blog, and I wrote a blog a couple months ago about how I went to, I get like a monthly massage. I've done that for decades because I just think it's really healthy. So I went to my local place with my regular massage therapist, and she had told me in this particular place, which is, it's a chain, not a chain store, but a chain business. So, and they have them all over the place. This is in a strip mall in a big town in New Jersey, and she said that some of the other massage therapists had thought that they might have seen a sort of a shadow figure a couple of times running around. And then she tells me that there was a very sort of peculiar, nasty odor that was coming from one room that was the last room on this very long hallway of little massage rooms. And it would come and go, and nobody could find a source. It was very strange, and it was this odor was so bad that people wouldn't even go in there. So I happen to know from my psychic detective work that certain spirits are connected with certain, sometimes bad odors and sometimes really nice smells. It just depends. So I knew that there was a spirit in there. And anyway, so she brought me in from my massage into the room that was next to the smelly room. And we'd never been down there, and I had gone to this place for years. And so I had my head in that little face thing, and so I was face down. And I think she was working on my feet, so I couldn't see anything. And we're talking away, and we're talking for at least 30 minutes or so. And she said that particular day, that some of the therapists had actually mentioned that there was a smell like gasoline in that room. And all of a sudden I said, oh my goodness, there was a word that was going through my head, and I actually thought, because I do a lot of my best psychic intuiting when I get massages. In fact, I usually give readings to whoever's working on me, and spirits will show up. They want me to deliver messages and that kind of thing. But anyway, I said, I got this word, blaze, and it occurs to me that's not for my reading later, that's for right now. I said, there must have been a fire that took place in that space where that room is, where that smell is, and somebody poured gas on it in order to make it worse, which means there's probably a homicide that took place right next door. As soon as I said this, that smell came enveloped all under where I had my face. And of course, I still can't see anything. And I said, oh my goodness, do you smell that? And she said, no. And I said, there's a spirit in here right now. And so I went into my mediumship mode, and I said, all right, I know that you're in here, and here's what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you, and I'm speaking to the spirit, I'm going to ask you a series of yes or no questions. And if the answer is yes, and only yes, I want you to flicker the light. There was one of those lights on the wall. It was very dim. And but I'm only flicker the light if your answer is yes. And immediately the light flickered. Now, of course, I can't see it, and it's my massage therapist who's still working on my feet, who's looking straight at the light. She drops my feet, and she said, oh, my God, the light just flickered. And I said, good. I then proceeded to ask a whole series of questions for the next, I would say, 30 minutes. And in response, it was like having an absolute direct conversation with this spirit. Turns out, and I'm not going to bore you with the whole long thing, but turns out I was able to learn, this was a spirit of a young girl who had in fact been murdered in that area by a man who she didn't know, who poured gasoline over, I believe it was in a barn, to cover the crime. She was between the age of 10 and 15. Her family didn't know where she was. Nobody had been able to find her. And this particular crime occurred in the 1950s. All right, so I got a ton of information. And as soon as I got all of this, I said, and by the end of this, tears are pouring down my face. And I still haven't, I haven't seen anything. It's just my massage therapist who was immediately shouting out whether the lights were flickering or not. And I told this really pathetic little spirit how to find the light, and that she didn't have to stay there anymore. She didn't have to wander the earth trying to find people who would see her, know her, experience her, or tell her where her family was. And as soon as I told her how to get out of there, the lights for the next 30 minutes afterwards completely stopped. So this is all my very long story, my long way of telling you that even when you're dealing with spirits, in the ghost world, there are also ways that you can engage in healing. And in that case, I was hopefully helping to heal the spirit of this little girl.
I have a question from Mike in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and he is asking, actually, it's a pair of questions. Is this ability that you have just a matter of tapping into a sixth sense, so to speak?
Yeah. I actually gave a presentation a couple of years ago at the, it's called IRVA, it's the International Remote Viewing Association, so it's for remote viewers, and my topic was basically all about how many senses we have. And I've written about this too. I don't believe we have sixth sense. In fact, I said it's the myth of the sixth sense. It's kind of like a garbage bag. You kind of dump everything you don't understand into that category. We all know what the five senses are, but everything else we throw into this sixth category. And I don't believe that. And in fact, scientists have already, it's kind of well accepted at this point in the scientific community that we have somewhere between 9 and 21 senses. And I've been able to identify, I think, more than 40. And I believe that ultimately, within the next few years, we are going to discover that we have hundreds of senses. Because it all boils down to how do you define a sense? What is a sense? And I think that, we're so used to thinking about senses as coming through one of our 5 sensory organs. Like you need an organ. The organ is like the interpreter of the vibrational data that's coming into the body. So the organ does all the work, translates it into the electrical impulses, goes to the brain, and then the brain does some magic work and kind of pieces it all together and creates either a visual image or a sound or a sensation of a touch or whatever. And there are a lot of vibrations that are beyond the range of each one of those organs, but we still experience them. And the question is, how are we experiencing them? So they're reaching us, and I do believe in the case of this is one way that I've tried to explain psychic phenomena, that our brain is getting impressions of these vibrations and then puts them into formats that we understand already based on our 5 senses. So we may, as an example, we may see a person's aura, or we may see images from something that's going to occur in the future, or we see a ghost. Those are ways that the brain has translated certain bits of information that didn't travel through our eyes necessarily, but it created visual images for us so we could say, oh yeah, I can sort of get what that is. So that's the short version on that.
Mike's follow-up question is it the exact same tuning into an alien spirit for you as it is tuning into a human spirit?
I don't know that I've ever tuned into an alien spirit. I think that there are ways that you can distinguish between the energetic signatures of different types of entities that are in the non-physical 3D realms. Everybody has their own energetic signature anyway. All of us do. But then that's more of our spiritual signature. But I think you can get a sense, and I don't even know if I would have any words to describe it, of some of the different types of entities that we're talking about. And I don't know that I would particularly call that tuning into their soul. And by the way, my I don't know if you call it a guess or hunch or it's something, I certainly have heard enough information, for example, particularly about the small grays, that might indicate that they are more robotic in nature, and I don't know to what extent you can tune into that energy on a soul level. I mean, and that gets you into some questions of, I think that we're verging in science on being able to create certain types of entities that are going to approach having something extremely similar to what we call consciousness. But I don't know whether that qualifies as a soul.
Well, you know what? From my own personal experiences, and I have felt and been around both physically and spiritually, and I can honestly say that, when you're around extraterrestrial energy, it's almost like, to put it on a human scale, it's almost like, having helium around where you're having fun, and it's such a higher point of energy and a high, compared to a lower realm of what a spirit would be. Maybe that's a bad analogy for a lot of people to comprehend and understand, but it is, one of the better ways I've tried to explain it, to people outside of this show, is that there is a huge difference. It seems that the ghostly spirits are almost on a lower plane. It feels heavier, it feels darker, whereas the extraterrestrial energy seems to be much higher in scale, lighter, and it doesn't seem as tense and as stressful when they're around. Have you ever felt that as well?
I think that might qualify more with what people might call celestials, some of the higher forms, light forms, versus some of the lower forms, because I think there's a whole spectrum out there. I mean, when you say it feels like helium, is that because you feel like they are vibrating faster and higher?
Yes, exactly.
Right, and so it's not just a simple, like, you just feel euphoric, like you just, or not like you've had laughing gas or anything like that.
No, nothing along those lines of laughing gas, but it's more so, it's a lighter feeling. It's not as heavy, spirits still carry around, from what I have noticed, a lot of human energy, especially if they've just crossed over. And if you know what this ghost spirit feels like, it's almost like, taking that and, taking 50 pounds worth of bricks or of weights off your shoulders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and also, I mean, I've certainly experienced when I have been, there was one example where I was doing this, it seemed like a fairly silly little paranormal investigation of it was a former courthouse that got turned into a museum, and we had our little K2 meters and walking around, and mine was doing nothing, and we go into what was the old jury room where I guess the jury would hang out or something, and my husband's meter went off. Mine again was doing nothing. And I was moving it around this door. There was only one door. I didn't know where it went. And I turned around, and all of a sudden I was virtually lifted off the ground by the scruff of my neck. And the entire room went, well, first of all, I got really dizzy. I started yelling. And finally, it put me down. And I was totally confused because I didn't know what the heck it was. And the atmosphere in the room got incredibly dense. And it's very hard to explain this, but it was difficult to breathe. I had to go sit down, and the room stayed heavy. And so that was, anyway, I learned afterwards that it had been reported that there was a a ghost of the old security guard who his job was to stop anybody like the jurors from opening up that door which led into the judge's chambers. So apparently I had gotten too close and had pissed off the security guard. But the point is the energy of that spirit was incredibly heavy. So, I don't know if that's what you mean exactly in terms of heavy.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a question from Eric in Twitterverse, in Twitterland, at #SpaceOutRadio. He is asking, Nancy, when it comes to the paranormal, what does the word entity really mean? Like energy?
Huh. Interesting question. Entity. I don't know. I mean, oh my goodness, that's such a hard question.
They bring it sometimes.
My goodness, how am I going to answer that? Yeah. I mean, an entity is, usually we think of them as being some form of consciousness, and whether they exist in a physical 3D reality or whether they exist in a spiritual reality, they're a consciousness which is how would you describe it? I mean, it's a sense of self that manifests in shape. And if he's asking, about alien type of entities, you're probably an expert on that.
I am far from an expert. That's why I have a radio show, because I make pretty much as I do on this show as I did during my 10-year career in mainstream, which is nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I will. I give you. Listen. What I have learned in this interesting field is that, because we were talking earlier about different levels of consciousness, and so that includes hypnagogic states and dream states and trance states, and states where you're less than 100% awake, or logical. And so I don't know about you, but I remember just about all my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Every night.
Oh, not me.
And, well, okay. So, I've had I've had a few, I could count them on one hand, alien-related dreams. One of them, and I don't know if this was simply a dream or something else, one of them, I was on a craft. It was a spaceship, and I got myself into what seemed to be some kind of an elevator. There was a very short, charcoal gray colored alien entity in there. Didn't look like any typical, so-called gray that I've ever heard about, read about, seen in the books, anything like that. It looked different. It was extremely shy. It almost seemed frightened of me, which I thought was odd. So we didn't really communicate. And I get to whatever this next level of this craft is when I'm going up. And I'm in a much larger room, and I encounter all different types of alien entities, ranging from sort of more humanoid, or what you might call more Nordic looking, to giants, to a thing that looked like a cereal box. Mm-hmm. I mean, just weird. So maybe I have a phenomenal imagination, that's possible. Or maybe that was an encounter with a collective group of aliens, and collectives do occur. If you look at the, case histories and things, they do occur.
Mm-hmm.
And they do seem to live in colonies together.
Right. Craig has a question for you, and he is asking, how do you avoid all of the feelings after such an encounter with spirit?
How do I avoid them? I am really good at being able to shut down a lot of energy, because I always told people I think I'm really not an empath, because empaths, they'll walk into a room, and if somebody's got a headache, they're going to get a headache. They just feel everything. It's like there are no filters. Because I started out so left-brained, I have excellent filters. So I can shut down a lot of energy. I can keep it out. And I've trained people how to do that, because I've taught this stuff for many years. But there are times, like when I've worked on cases that involve, particularly ones that involve children, homicide cases and that kind of thing. And I'm thinking of one in particular that's always disturbed me, where I ended up connecting somehow more with the perpetrator of that crime. And all you want to do is like take a psychic bath for weeks, maybe months, and you still feel like no matter how hard you're scrubbing off that psychic energy, you're just never 100% clean. But I think that you have to be strong, you have to be disciplined, and you have to absolutely 100% believe and understand that you can dump that energy, that it doesn't belong to you. You can get rid of it at will. So you have to go in there knowing how powerful you are.
We're going to get into the extraterrestrial side in the next hour. We got about 5 minutes before we're going to go to our first break of the night. We only have you for 2 hours tonight, so we got to try and take advantage of this. Shar would like to know if you've ever dealt with any shadow people.
No, I've never ever dealt with a shadow person, which I always thought was odd, because I have helped people who were dealing with shadow people. I know all about them, but I've never run into one. Which maybe because, talking about having filters, it may be that my filters are set up in such a way that I don't want to see them. And because I can tell you that having walked into this field, the psychic and paranormal work, I walked in really, really slowly and carefully, because I knew it could be frightening, and I knew it could be dangerous. A lot of people think that's silly, but I know that it's not silly. And so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't sort of like a little innocent kid skipping through the flowers in a field, thinking, not realizing it was a minefield. So maybe there's sometimes a fear, if you know that you're afraid of something deep down and you really don't want to see it, you're just not ready to see it. So that could be another reason. But no, I've never seen with my physical eyes any shadow spirits.
You're lucky. You're lucky.
Yeah, I in some respects I think I am. And by the way, I have seen spirits with my eyes. And I'm able to describe them accurately with my third eye. I mean, really accurately, because I can, I've tested this out because I've been able to get historical data. So I've seen them before, and I can describe what they look like, and I can describe things like, different aspects of their lives, how they died, stuff like that. I even was able to, I did I forget what I was doing, but anyway, I tuned into a general who had passed away in the Civil War. And we were all sitting around in a room where this guy had been, apparently. And I said, I feel like he got he died of a gunshot wound to the head. And the local historian who was there with us said, no, sorry, you're wrong. He died of a bullet wound to the neck. I thought, okay, it's possible. I've been wrong plenty of times. But after that, I went home, I looked it up on the internet and found all kinds of historical documents that said he had died of a gunshot wound to the head. So I'm able to document stuff that I don't see with my physical eyes.
That's incredible. Do you see better with your eyes closed than your eyes open?
Yes.
A lot of people won't understand that, and I got about 60 seconds for you. Could you quickly describe what we mean by that?
Because I get super distracted by anything visual, and a lot of my information, I tend to be more clairvoyant, which means that I'm getting imagery data, psychic data. So if I'm getting distracted by whatever is in front of me, and by the way, I do a lot of my readings on the phone, and a lot of times it's easier for me because I'm not getting distracted by looking at somebody who's right in front of me. So it's just easier to see into all directions in time and space when you're not being locked into something that's in your particular space-time location.
Well, we're going to hop out for our first break here momentarily here on Spaced Out Radio. And, when we come back, we're going to get into ET contact because this is a subject that I am pretty passionate about. I think it's fun to chat about it too. And I know,
good.
And Nancy, I know you have some questions for me, so we'll just light it up and have some fun with it because that's what we kind of like to do here on this show. And, I know the beautiful part about this show is we're growing an audience literally every single night. And a lot of people haven't heard my stories, and we can do my stories and get your opinions on them or whatever you want. You can fill us in on some new ones. Really doesn't matter. We'll be back with Spaced Out Radio's hour number 2 right after this.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com. and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio Live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, the Crypto Guru is back. Ronald Murphy will be here talking cryptids starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, as we get things going on the mighty SOR at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, we want to welcome in everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live in Sin City. We are the nighttime show in Las Vegas for Renegade Talk Radio. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Antediluvian. Antediluvian is your password. What it means, nobody knows, not even Webster's Dictionary, but Bill just throws a bunch of letters together to make a password each and every night, and that's it for tonight if you're an SOR space traveler. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter. Follow me at Spaced Out Radio. You can also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio in order to chat with me directly during the show. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Check out our YouTube channel where we store our archives, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of really cool things for you to check out. We're going to be adding some new stuff on there pretty darn soon, including a new chat room for all of our other listeners who want to check it out. So, go to our website, sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club as well. It's only $5 a month. Nancy Du Tertre is with us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Attorney, paranormal investigator, psychic detective, alien contactee investigator, and I'm sure she grows a great garden as well in her spare time. Nancy, welcome back.
Well, you know, I actually did win second prize for one of my roses.
That
in a horticultural thing.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, that's my psychic ability coming out right there.
Yes.
You know, that's my psychic ability. That's where it is. Thank you so much for being with us. Unfortunately, we have you for just one more hour. And for our listeners, Christina George will be joining us in hour number 3 tonight as we talk more of psychic, paranormal, and ET contact. But Nancy, thank you so much for doing this. When did you start focusing on alien contact?
Well, that one's easy because, first of all, I actually wrote in my book, Psychic Intuition, that, well, you know, I've gotten to a point where I accept ghosts. You know, ghosts are real. I get it. I've seen them. I felt them. I've heard them. I smell them. You know, ghosts are real. But for me to believe in an alien, I'd probably have to see one with my own eyes. Well, you know, be really, really, really careful what you wish for, because soon thereafter, this was on June 19th, 2011. My daughter and I were walking out of a local movie theater at around midnight. The place was, I'd never seen it like this, was completely deserted. There may have been one employee in the entire movie theater. There were no other people there except us. And we walked out in the parking lot in this big mall area, big parking lot. My daughter said, she points up in the sky, she says, "What's that?" And I look up, and they're about 500 to 1,000 feet up in the air is a massive orange lights, like maybe 20 or 30 orange lights. And I say, I have no clue what that is. And the more I stare at this, and I'm trying to figure out, are there, you know, lights that are bouncing off the ground, that are reflecting, that are maybe they're bouncing off the clouds, but there was really no low cloud color at all. So there was nothing. These were lights, orange lights in the sky, and which I had never seen. And since I never studied anything in ufology, I didn't know that that's a classic thing. Anyway, the more I'm looking at this, the more I see it's a boomerang-shaped craft that's covered with these lights, and it's the size of a football field. And my daughter is actually terrified. She's saying, "Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go." And I said, "No, I've got to see what this thing does. What is this?" And at one point, a giant white luminescent orb telescoped open off of one of the wings of this thing. I figure it must have been about 15 or 20 feet in diameter. It detaches. It starts circling and curlicuing all around this enormous craft, like it's looking for something. It was clearly intelligently guided. It goes behind the craft, disappears, comes over the top of it, goes back to where it started from on the sort of wing of this boomerang shape, and then blinks out and disappears. And then eventually this entire craft either cloaks or dematerializes in 3 phases. And after that time, my daughter and I began to receive telephone call interruptions from really bizarre sounding, sort of electronic sounding male voices speaking something that I couldn't understand, although I know at one point it said my daughter's name. It sounded like it was coming through very, very thick distortion waves. And we could both hear it, but we couldn't hear each other as long as it was on the phone. And then it would disconnect the phone line, and then we would try to call each other back, and usually for 5 or 10 minutes it would be impossible. And eventually that started to happen with her and some of her friends and me and some of my friends. So there were clearly communications that were going on. I believe they were as a result of that sighting. And that got me into trying to figure out alien languages and how do aliens communicate. People always say, well, yeah, they do everything through telepathy, so, you know, you don't have to worry about language. And that's true to a degree, but they also do communicate in a variety of different types of spoken and written languages. And that's what I've spent a lot of time researching, and that's what I wrote my most recent book, How to Talk to an Alien, on that topic.
When you have talked to experiencers who have had contact, whether it's an abduction or whether it's benevolent, have you noticed a difference in how they try to explain their contact, how they try to carry themselves afterwards? Are they a mess, or are they someone who still has it quite together?
Yeah, I should ask you this.
Oh.
Well, how have you, after, let's say, some of your initial experiences, how did you carry yourself?
A lot of anxiety medication.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm not on it anymore. I'm fortunate to have kicked it, but at first I wasn't sleeping because I'm lucky. I haven't had very many malevolent type experiences. There's only the one that I can truly recall, and that one I know I was fighting. But I think the big thing for me was not fully understanding. And now that I've actually had, my own experiences and looking back on them, I wish they would happen again, because there are things that I said no to that, knowing what I know now, I would have said yes. Okay? Like when I had the craft that had landed 150 yards away from me and a friend of mine, I would go up to it now or try and get closer to it. The E.T. that I saw in the forest with a lady named Samantha Mowat at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my first extraterrestrial experience. They invited us over. What if I was given that opportunity again? I would go up to it. And I think that's the frustrating part of it. And Spear saying in the chat room, hindsight is always 20/20. Absolutely it is. Because the worst part about these experiences, good or bad, you don't know if they're going to happen again. You don't know if you're going to get that opportunity to have the ability to walk up to an extraterrestrial like Samantha and I had, and I panicked and I said no. And I think that's what keeps me going, is the hope that one day I can have that awakened experience, what I like to call it, because it's not happening at night. I'm wide awake. I'm, throughout the day. I want that experience again. And I think for a lot of people who've had what I have had, they want that as well.
Well, so let me ask you this. What was it that made you not approach, that kept you away?
On which situation, the UFO or the alien?
Either one of them.
Okay, let me take the alien experience when I had that one happen. What kept me away was fear. Not fear of the creature. I did not fear the creature. What I feared was, when this happened 3 years ago, I'm 40 years old when this happens. And I'm halfway through my life, technically speaking. And in the first 40 years, nobody told me about extraterrestrials. I recall, my mom and dad telling me about God, heaven, devil, hell. If you're good, you go up. If you're bad, you go down. But nobody ever explains to you what you do, Nancy, when there's a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial being at 2 o'clock in the afternoon standing in a forest staring right back at you. Nobody tells you how to prepare for that because it's not supposed to exist, technically speaking. And
well, is that what scared you? Was that it was just so foreign to you that you didn't know what to do, and so your impulse was to kind of get away?
No, we didn't get away. We just stood there and we watched them for about 15 minutes. I was frozen. I was absolutely frozen. And I kept saying the same sentence over and over again. What the F is that? And in my scenario, I think the hard part for me was, and I've explained it this way numerous times, imagine when you're a young kid and you're holding a piece of paper and mom and dad say, do not let go of this piece of paper. And every rule that you've been taught by your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, your teachers, maybe your ministers, if you go to church, everything that you have been taught is written down on this piece of paper. And mom and dad told you, never let go of it. And then some stranger walks right up and says, give me that, rips it out of your hand, crumples it up, throws it in the garbage. And now you're sitting here lost because you don't know which way to go. It made me question everything.
I think there's a different way of looking at it, which is if you, now I'm assuming that you are probably extremely intuitive. So what I'm thinking is you may also, on some level, have been intuitively understanding that it might have been too dangerous for you to get close. I mean, there's enough, there are enough case histories out there in terms of people who've gotten too close to spacecraft, and they've gotten radiation burns, and all kinds of weird stuff has happened to them physically because they either touched it, they got too close, or whatever. So that may have been an intelligent thing. It may also be an intelligent thing not to get too close to certain types of entities. And by the way, and again, for me, this is goes into a lucid dream that I had. I don't know whether a lucid dream is a real thing or not. I know it feels different. And I've always been a lucid dreamer since I was a kid. But I got into my little car. I drove about the equivalent of about 5 blocks from here in my local neighborhood. I was waiting for a friend of mine. I was going to pick her up in the car. I'm sitting in the driver's seat. The passenger door opens, and instead of it being my friend, this sort of reptilian-ish alien hops into my car. And I am shocked in my dream, and I look at this alien's looking at me, and I realized, I had a split second. I said to myself, I got to get the heck out of here because this is bad news. I'm going to get abducted. There's going to be something very bad, and I can feel it and I know it. But I knew that by the time that I was going to open my car door and try and make a run for it, it was too late because whatever this alien had done is that he had locked into my, our eyes had locked, and in the gaze there was a, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like a clamp or a control. I could feel my brain locked down, and it was if I was, being like one of those beams that guides an airplane into an airfield. I mean, I was just under control. And I said, this is really bad. I'm screwed. And then I said to myself, why have I been doing all this psychic training all these years? It must be good for something. So I gathered what felt to me like a plasma ball of my own electrical energy, and I shot it back through this almost like wired connection. Shot it back at this creature and broke the control and the power, and that dream ended. So my point is, sometimes, and forget about whether that is a real thing or a not real thing, I think it lies somewhere in that strange, the strange lands in between. Sometimes you intuitively know when you should be approaching an entity or a strange thing, and when you should, when you should stay away and when you should approach.
Well, there comes a time when you are literally hanging out trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And I don't know how else to put it. I do know that after that incident, I had a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier in the show, you start researching the living hell out of absolutely everything, trying to figure out if anybody else is like you. And it becomes an immediate addiction, in trying to find the answers. At least it was for me.
I agree. It becomes, I always, you remember the Spielberg's Close Encounters movie, where the guys, with the big mud thing, trying to build
Yes.
What's it called? Devil's, whatever it is.
Devil's Peak,
yeah. And he's totally obsessed to the point where he's, throwing the dirt in through the kitchen window. And I laugh every time I think about that because it's so true. It's like you got to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. And I have friends who they've responded with terrible fear. They weren't able to tell anybody. And it's sort of this terrible feeling. One person I'm thinking of, she actually tried to interact with these Greys. She's sort of a very nice New Age healer person, and she found herself, in that typical paralyzed, in bed, can't move, can barely move her eyes, and that's about it. And they approach her, and she's trying to telepathically say, hey, how you doing? What are you, why are you here? Who are you? Let's have a conversation. And she said it was horrific that they were absolutely cold, unwilling to communicate, almost hostile, and then abducted her. And, I know people have gone through the various types of medical things, experimentation, a lot of painful, frightening, terrifying, all that kind of stuff. And who are you going to tell? And that's the whole other thing. Who are you going to tell? Are you going to tell your doctors? Not really. I have lots of friends who have not told their doctors any of this stuff because, how are they going to explain it? They'll be laughed at.
I got laughed at by mine.
Yeah, but I have other friends who went through really crazy stuff. I mean, I have another friend who apparently during this medical her entire eyeball was removed. But she loves these entities, loves them like they are her closest, dearest family, and can't wait for the next experience. So it's sort of all over the place. It's very odd.
It is very odd when it comes to the experience. Now, in your research, are you noticing a big difference between benevolent contact and malevolent contact?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the big ongoing debate. And if you... people who, researchers who say, they're all evil, they're all out to destroy us, and the reptilians are the man-eaters, and they have their robotic Greys doing these hideous medical genetic experiments on us for their own benefit. And then you have the whole other sort of line of thought, which is, they're here to help us with our human evolution, to help us, become more than what we are already, and it's all benevolent, and that any of these things are going to be for our own good, kind of, anyway, you start, people tend to get stuck into one line or the other. And I think, from my own sense, I think we're dealing with many, many, many different types of entities. I think you have some that are aligned with negative forces and some aligned with positive forces, which is why I sort of caution people before they're out there doing their, their calling in of the UFOs, that they might want to think a little bit more carefully about knowing exactly who they're trying to call in. You may or may not want to be on the radar. And I would say the same thing for people walking into a haunted location. You don't go in there threatening the spirit, saying, come on, show yourself, show us where you are, interact with us, because you go into certain places like prisons or psychiatric hospitals, or really kind of nasty places where there's some truly nasty entities hanging around, and they'll go home with you. Oh. So I think they're on both sides.
Albeit the abduction experience people are having, and you say it seems that you've dealt with both, are people seeing the same types of creatures, same types of ETs?
Yeah, and I think they are. I'm always kind of careful about that, and this is where my skeptical side tends to kick in, because I try to look to see historically what types of entities people have reported seeing over the decades, because you get it's like any little story or fact or fake news or whatever, if it gets repeated enough times on social media or on the internet or anything else, people tend to think it's true and that it's a fact. And then you get copycats, people who wannabe people who say, "Oh yeah, I saw that," or whatever. But I do think that I think there's a large variation, and if you look at the numbers of types of entities that have been reported, and the numbers range from 4 to I think 46 to 82 to 300 and some odd as being cataloged in reports that I'm not even so sure that they're authentic or not. Okay, and it depends how you define an entity. I don't know, little like elementals or fairies, do those qualify as the type of entities that you're talking about when you're talking about alien entities? But it does seem like people, by and large, report the same general groups. And, you're talking about your small grays, tall whites, reptilians, insectoids, praying mantises, humanoids, hybrids, Nordics, giants, blue-skinned. That's sort of the overall categories. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think there are many. Now, my scenario for me, I have seen, I saw the 3 little grays the night I woke up on the table while I was being implanted. I saw a tall gray at my window during this show on April 20th of 2015, talking Buddha of all topics.
Huh.
And,
wow.
Yeah, and then the tall guy who was in the forest, I have no idea what the hell he was. No idea. Don't even know how to explain him. But I would like to check out, honestly, I would like to see some of these different creatures and beings. I'd like to see a humanoid. Who knows? Maybe I've run into him. I've been to Las Vegas a number of times. Maybe I've already run into him there.
Well, yeah. According to Charles Hall, you probably should have.
I know. That is such a great story. Partying at the Sahara.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fly into Area 51 and catch the bus to the Sahara. Sure, why not?
You know, one of my mentors was Ingo Swann, who was created remote viewing, and he would tell he passed away a couple of years ago, but he had this wonderful story about, I think he was out in California visiting some people, and he goes into a supermarket and is looking at the fresh produce section, and there he talks about this, you know, incredibly voluptuous woman who is over there standing right next to him, also looking at the fresh produce, and, you know, like little tiny shorts and high heels, and like just a real sort of knockout. And he knew immediately that she was an alien. And I always, I thought a lot about that, because, and that sort of goes back to the question of, well, you know, what is an alien signature? And there's a way, I think, that you sense that energy signature as being not human. In the same way, and by the way, I was once strangely in the fresh produce section of my supermarket in New Jersey, and I couldn't reach something that was high up on the shelf, and there was this absolutely stunning woman. She looked like a model who, she was wearing this, it was like a white dress with a bright red belt, and she looked like she would have come out of like Look magazine from the 1960s. Like she just wasn't in the right century, or the right decade. And, or maybe the century at that point. Yeah, it would have been century. And I asked her if she could reach and get it for me, and she said, sure. And I said, oh, you have a little bit of an accent. Where are you from? And she said, and she was quite tall, by the way. And she said, oh, you wouldn't know where it is. And I said, well, try me. And she said, oh, I'm from Latvia. I said, oh, I was actually just in Latvia a couple of years ago. And, you know, that was that. We left the end of the conversation. And I would say, you know, I got out of there fairly quickly, got through the checkout, got into my car, and then drove home. Now, driving home is about, I don't know, 5 minutes from there. But whatever it was, and then I drive down my street, which is, it's a ways from there by car, a couple of miles at least, and I see she's walking down my street. And I'm thinking, well, how did she get there? And how did she get there so fast? So there was something off. And I think that that's how we all have to start to learn how to tune in to each other and all of the energetic signatures of everybody that we have around us.
Do you find there is a correlation between people who have ghostly experiences and people who have extraterrestrial experiences?
There's a lot of crossover. There's way more than I ever would have thought. Yeah. And because my progression was, I started out with psychic stuff, slowly worked into paranormal stuff, and then figured, and I never thought, for whatever stupid reason, I never thought there was any relationship between doing psychic work and then doing paranormal work, even though I was a psychic detective dealing with ghosts of, you know, people who had been murdered mostly. And then I assumed, that having gone into the paranormal world, there was absolutely no relationship to ufology. And then I find it's all connected, because people generally who have had some type of contact experience with UFOs or aliens or whatever, it almost always ends up with them. It's like very often that'll open up some type of a portal, and there will be all kinds of paranormal events in their homes. And also very often, after they go through whatever their contact experience is, they start to become psychic. So it's all connected. And that's, I've just been a real slow learner when it's come to that. But, I mean, is that your experience also?
I find that there is more between the two than what we give credit for, and I don't think a lot of people or enough people who are investigating these types of experiences take the time to look into, because my experiences started out very paranormal. Then they went cryptid, and then they went ufological, then extraterrestrial. And that is my pattern. And I know another couple people who've had the same pattern, and I don't see where there is a difference between the two. We have a lot of people out there who refuse to even believe that there is a tie-in between the two, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm kind of living proof that there is, because my ghostly experiences didn't stop just because I started having extraterrestrial experiences or vice versa. So I do believe there is a tie-in. What that tie-in is, it's behind one of those hundreds of doors that we're searching for answers behind.
It's funny because every time I think that I have been pushed to my outer limits of something that is so incredible I couldn't possibly believe in it, I get pushed into something even more ridiculous. The latest thing has been, I have a friend who has done an awful lot of very, very serious UFO types of investigations, but also a ton of Bigfoot investigations. And what I'm learning, I guess, is that Bigfoot has a relationship to aliens. I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard in the world. But then I started to read more and more case histories and talk to people, and I started to see, I got to open my mind to that. So I do think it is very much all related, and I think it's related to elevating our perceptions and our consciousness to a level where we can read energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it's about.
I have a question from Mike in the SOR Space Travelers Club, or Make That Space Out Radio's chat room on Spreaker. I follow like 5 different chat rooms. It's tough sometimes. I'm not going to lie.
You must be in like a big control room with filled with like screens and monitors and.
I wish. If you saw my little dungeon here, that has. You remember Les Nessman's office on WKRP? Where he always,
you're making me dig way, way back there, but kind of.
He had the tape on the ground wishing where his walls were, and you literally had to go to the tape door to knock on the air to enter his office. Anyhow, that is what the Spaced Out Radio studios here at Uncle Jimbo's cabin looks like right now. And I know Mike, I know Mike in the chat room can verify this because he's been here. One day we want walls. We don't ask for much. We want T-shirts and we want walls. I wish Donald Trump was my president. That way I could get some walls built around here. That's another story. But no, Mike has a question here that I want to get to, and he is asking, with all the people that you have investigated these types of contact, do you believe alien implants can create false memories about abduction and contact events?
I don't think that it's the implants that create the false memories. I think that we are really easy to mind control, all of us. And I think it's being done all the time. And so I don't think that's... Well, let me give you... okay, so I'll tell you another story. I have a very dear friend who lives more over on the west coast, or not exactly the coast, but that end of the United States. I'm over on the East Coast. And she had... Well, last summer I had been I had pneumonia for about 5 weeks. And I was supposed to go and have dinner with some friends, and I really kind of dragged myself. But I was at the end of my not feeling great. So we go out to dinner, and after that I say, listen, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to bed. And so I went to bed around probably 9 or 9:30 that night, which was a Friday night. Well, I didn't wake up until somewhere in the wee hours of Saturday night or Sunday. Anyway, but I slept for 30 hours. Now, I've never slept for 30 hours in my entire life. I couldn't open my eyes, wiped out. And anyway, my friend calls me on Sunday, and she says, how you doing? I said, fine. She said, had any alien contact experiences recently? And I laughed, and I said, I don't think so. I may have had a sense of something going on, but no, nothing. I said, no, the only thing I've just been sleeping for 30 hours. She starts laughing hysterically. And when she finally stops, I said, what is so funny? She said that Friday night, she had gone to, she was staying in a cabin in the mountains with her husband, and that she had, and I'm shortening this story a lot, she'd had an abduction experience, and when her husband was, put into that state of sort of suspended animation, and that she had, I said, well, do you remember where you went? Did you see the interior of the craft? And she said, yeah. I said, did you see the entities? Yes. Do you remember what they looked like? Sort of. She said they weren't happy with her because she really didn't want to be there, and she was sort of fighting them. And I said, well, did you go, was there a group of humans that were also there? Yes. Men, women, yeah. Any of them look familiar? Well, yeah, one of them. I said, oh, anyone I would know? She said, yeah. So, it was you. Anyway, she came back from that experience with an implant, which she showed me a photograph of it. She'd already had an implant before, and it was quite visible. It was in her, I believe it was in her sort of wrist area, or in the, where the hand is. And she was so furious that they had put an implant into her. She had said to one of her relatives, I want you to take a hammer and I want you to smash this thing. And her relative said, absolutely not, I'm not doing it. And she was so mad, she said, fine, it's really hard for me to do this myself, but I'm going to do it myself if you won't do it. Anyway, he finally did it, and this implant did get smashed. Personally, and by the way, years ago I interviewed Dr. Roger Lear, who was doing, the only guy doing alien implant removal surgeries in the country. And based on everything I know, I think that was probably not a smart idea to get rid of it that way. But she did. And the point is, as far as I know, I don't have any implants. I have lots of friends who've had them. But as far as I know, I don't. But I don't have the... I think that if I was truly on a craft during those 30 hours that I was asleep, I'm really good when it comes to recall. I have excellent dream recall. In none of my dreams, because I remember them, for that period of time, There was nothing associated with being on a craft. So if I can be controlled that easily, I don't need an implant, apparently. She had an implant, but she was cognizant of the entire experience and was pretty unhappy about it. So that's my long answer on the implants.
Yeah, implants are kind of fun, especially when they pulsate when you talk about them. I know every time I tell my story about my implant, I can feel the back of my head all of a sudden going like thud, 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 thud. It almost gains like a heartbeat. It's kind of weird that way.
Well, do you think that you're controlled by it?
I do this show every night, so I must be.
Yeah, but how do you know that that's the... See, the implants, at least according to Dr. Lear, a lot of them gave off certain radio frequencies. Mm-hmm. So to me, that indicates they could either be used as a receiver or a transmitter for something. It's possible. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they need that. I think we can be... How many people do you know who, when they saw a UFO, okay, or some amazing thing having to do with a UFO, they completely forgot about taking a photograph of it?
Well,
I think that's a form of... Yeah, and I think that's a form of mind control. People who, they get screen memories. That's mind control. People who put in suspended animation, that's mind control. If you don't remember anything, that's mind control. I think we're really easy to manipulate.
Oh, I would agree with that, too. But then comes the overall question, what is the purpose of what they are doing?
Well, that was your job. You were supposed to ask. Did you ask the question?
Oh, hell no. I was just busy. I'm going to be honest with you here, and I don't mean this to laugh or make a joke out of it, because God is my witness, and I swear on the Bible or my children's lives, whatever you want to believe. The only thing I was concerned about was not going to the bathroom on their table. Because, because as they were working on me, cutting open the back of my head, I felt that thing. It sounded like, I don't even know how to explain the sound of the thing that cut open my skull to push the implant in. I had the worst urge to go to the bathroom, and I had to pee bad. I literally told them, I said, you guys gotta hurry up here, because I gotta piss like a racehorse.
It's so funny. It's funny that you're saying that, because I have thought about that as an issue for a long time.
Yes.
And you're the first person I've heard to actually talk about it.
Well, you know what? I brought this story up. I don't know if you know who Lorian Fenton is, but she's Lorian's a good friend of mine. And when I first met her and I was telling her about my experience, and I brought up the whole fact that I had to urinate while they're working on me, and she started laughing, and she goes, Dave, you know how I know your story is true? And I said, how? And she goes, I have heard thousands of these types of stories, and nobody would make up the fact that while they're getting their head dissected on the table, would they be complaining more about taking a piss than having a hole open in their head.
Yeah.
But that's the way it works. Unfortunately, as weird as that sounds, that's the way it works sometimes.
No, I always wondered about that.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever wondered or looked into what the implants are actually being used for? Are they used for tracking? Are they used for altering human DNA? What do you think it is?
I would just be guessing, so I'm not even sure my opinion is good for anything. My assumption is that it's a type of a tracking mechanism. I think it's different from what we're familiar with, because I remember Dr. Lear explaining to me how in some of his surgeries, where they would they'd make the cut to right near the implant to then remove it with whatever medical instrument or surgical instrument used, and that these things would be anticipating the move, and they would start moving around, which is weird. So they have some type of intelligence associated with them. They have an ability to merge with our human tissues and fibers, because apparently what he also learned was that unless he would store these in the test tubes or whatever with the rest of the human tissues that they were embedded in, these things would evaporate within minutes. So I think they do have an ability to insinuate themselves into our biology. If that means they're changing DNA, well, maybe they are. I don't know. But, somebody ought to be testing the DNA of people who have had these implants so that we can get an answer. I mean, that would be the obvious thing, right? If they're being used as receivers or transmitters for information, giving different types of instructions, that's what I've always sort of assumed. They could be, I think they're smarter than the kinds of, simple tracking mechanisms that, like, we put on wild animals to figure out how they migrate. I think they're smarter than that.
We could see a bunch of humans walking around with them giant neck braces, with the tracking antennae on it. I just got a good image of that. It just started making me laugh.
I mean, and you're not the first person, by the way, that I know who has an implant in the brain. I have another friend who they've actually his doctors have seen it. In the whatever they are, whatever the scans are, I don't know, it's the MRIs or CAT scans or something, but they've seen it. And he doesn't know how it got there, but he's in constant contact with alien entities.
Oh, they are here. They are well here. Vivian has a question for you.
Yeah.
She is asking, do you suspect aliens are manipulating human DNA to speed up our evolution?
Well, that would be terrific. I mean, I think if they are, I'm all in favor. I think that's a good possibility. I think also that speeding up our evolution can be done, in the whole field of epigenetics, where it's not just what you have in the way of DNA, it's whether those particular chromosomes, I guess, are switched on or off. And it's the switches that become more important than the actual substance of what we have in the DNA. And it may be that in our evolution towards higher levels of consciousness, it's a matter of understanding which switches we need to work with. So it could be, something beyond merely something as chemical as fiddling around with the DNA. And people talk about all that junk DNA that we have anyway. So I think that's another way, things that could be switched on or off to elevate our consciousness.
Do you think though that there is actually something to do with the consciousness revolving around either the implant or the contact/abduction?
I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. And you know what? I'm not really comfortable guessing on things. I like to know things before I answer one way or another. And I don't know. I don't know that anybody has the answer to that. other than maybe a gut feeling or hunch on it. I mean, have you got a feeling on that?
Oh, that's why I asked you. You're the pro.
You're right. Yeah, but you're the experiencer of multiple things.
Putting it all on me here. Darn you, lady.
Well.
Darn you. You know what? I think it's probably a combination of both, Nancy. You know, I think the evolution of where we are going, they have already been. Because I am a firm believer in time travel. I believe... Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story here. When I was doing a channeling session with my friend Samantha, who is very connected to a Pleiadian people, I went into I asked them, whoever they are, to take me to where she is, or where the world that they keep showing her, and I saw this beautiful blue building, miles high. They didn't let me see any people, but when I was coming back out of it, it was kind of like they said, okay, you need to go now. And as I was coming back out of it, I literally went through, you know, on Star Trek where you see all of a sudden the stars become one, you know, almost like laser lights, and you're flying through it, you know, almost like a wormhole. I went through that. And I actually strained my vocal cords and my chest muscles going through that. To the point where a couple days later, I thought I was having a heart attack and had to explain to my doctor in the ER, who happened to be working the ER that day, about why I was in there with chest pains, because I had no signs of a heart attack. And he wanted to know why. And I got that strange scientific look. You know the one. You know the one we've all seen. So I do believe there is some sort of tie-in between the consciousness, where they can take us, where they think we can go, or where they want us to go. Have we evolved to fully understand it? I'm not too sure. Not too sure at all. And on that note, Nancy, I got to start wrapping this thing up.
Well, time flies when you're having fun.
I would love to bring you back.
I would be more than happy to come back.
Well, I hope so. You know what? I'm going to have to book you for a Friday night, so that way you can stay the full show with me.
All right, deal.
Absolutely. I will do that. So, Eric Markham, if you're listening, we have to book Nancy again. My booking, my fellow booking coordinator helps me out, and he's listening in unless he's already logged off and went to bed. But Nancy, quickly, if you could tell people your website, your books, where they could find them, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. My main website is called theskepticalpsychic.com, and they can get information about me, my background, all that kind of stuff. I also have another website called talkalien.com, and in terms of my most recent books, I would recommend in this particular field, Psychic Intuition, Everything You Ever Want to Ask But Were Afraid to Know, and also How to Talk to an Alien. And I do readings, I do predictions, so if you ever have predictions, I post anybody who would like to make a prediction on my website, and it is reviewed by lots of people all around the globe. So what I try to do is to verify them with events, real events.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy. We're getting a lot of comments in here. Great guest tonight. Great guest. So thank you so much for being on Space Out Radio. You hold on. We're going to head to a commercial. We'll be back right after this.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP, on the final Monday of every month. you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Wachowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night, the Crypto Guru is back. Yes, Ronald Murphy will be joining us at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com as we get all crypto with you starting tomorrow night. I hope you're with us, because it's going to be fun. It always is with the Crypto Guru. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on Renegade Talk Radio live in Sin City. We love being the nighttime show of Las Vegas. We want to thank everyone listening in on Revolution Radio. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. And if you're listening in on the United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world, it's fantastic to have you along for the ride as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Antediluvian. Antediluvian is your password. Once again, no one knows what it means except Bill and his Scrabble letters that put together the SOR Space Travelers password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to get your questions and comments to me live during the show. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Check out our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, for our archives. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes, and of course our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. For the final hour tonight, we bring in psychic, investigator, paranormal guru, Christina George. Christina, welcome back.
Hey, how are you, Dave? Thanks for having me.
I am glad that you are here because you're a good friend of mine in this field. And, you know, you're also very intuitive. You're also someone who has had a plethora of experiences of your own. And I know you were listening to Nancy here earlier on in the show. And one of the points that she was wondering, and we were wondering on here, and I'm curious to get your opinion on this. Do you think there is a stronger tie-in between the paranormal and the ufological/extraterrestrial than what most investigators actually believe?
Oh, I absolutely believe so. So much so that after 15 years, well, actually 10 years, I decided to create a radio show, which I host on the UPR and Talk Radio Network, which is Paranormal Connections, which was for that reason exactly. Over the past 15 years of not only interviewing people who are having paranormal experiences, but also abductees, contactees, I was starting to see a lot of similarities with the reportings between the two. And just like your past guest was saying, I was seeing that a lot of people who had abductions or contact were also reporting a lot of paranormal activity after that, and also their empathic or intuitive abilities were super heightened. So I completely believe that. I mean, really, I got into this field so much like your past guest. It was very interesting. I wish I could have listened to the whole thing. I'll have to listen to the archive. But, you know, when I was a child, I mean, I've always had psychic abilities since as young as I can remember. But I also as a child, I moved around a lot. And, I mean, literally, like, just about every year. Like, in the town that I grew up in, I went to every single elementary school. I went to all 4 of the junior high schools, and I went to both of the junior high schools and then both of the high schools. So we literally moved probably once a year. And something I had always seen from a very young child, I was very obsessed with the sky, whether, watching the clouds, laying down in the grass, kind of gazing or stargazing at night. But whenever I would move from a very young age, wherever we would move, the night that we would move in, it was always kind of like my tradition to go out in the back and do some stargazing. And every single time we would move, I would do that, I would see a UFO. Now, when I was young, I didn't really understand that that's what I was seeing. But it was strange because I started noticing that every single time we moved, I would see the same orb of light in the sky. And I just kind of discounted it, I guess. Like, I had such a hard time even understanding, comprehending, trying to figure out the whole psychic ability part of all of this. The UFO stuff, I definitely wasn't even going to deal with. I was just trying to kind of put that in the back of my mind. I never remembered any kind of contact or abduction or anything like that in my recollections. But something that was interesting was that from a very young age, I've had precog dreams. And they really heightened after I had my near-death experience. And I will tell you that for the majority of my life, and I will be 50 here next month, I don't know why, but I always thought that my precog dreams were given to me somehow by some spirit guide or something like that, right? Until last year. And it's strange you hadn't come on the show tonight, and then this ended up being the topic, because I, even on my own shows, have really not even talked about this too much, just because I'm still trying to process it and try to figure it all out. I've got the paranormal down pat, got to understand that, don't have any problems, not afraid of it. I've been, for the last 15, 20 years, been researching ufology. Never really, it gave it a real interest to me. But again, I always have had these precog dreams. They've, up until like a few years ago, they were always only about upcoming, like, natural disasters, weather changes, like earthquakes, volcanoes, mudslides, things like that. And literally, probably for like the last 5 years since I started my show, I've been posting those on a regular basis, whatever I get. And literally, sometimes within a week, sometimes within days, these things come to be. And so they were getting very, very accurate. And then all of a sudden, now I've also encountered sleep paralysis as a teenager. I've had attachments. I've had, like you said, I've had a very wide array of things happen. But if anybody had ever asked me, you have such an interest in ufology, do you think you've ever been contacted or abducted? I would say absolutely not. Again, until last year, I was having a precog dream, and it was the same place that I always go to. It's a round room. It's got a stand in the middle of the room that's round as well, like a little platform, and there's a railing around partial part of it. And I would always just kind of find myself awake. I mean, I would remember going to sleep, and then I would just be in this room. And then there would be what looked like a screen. But I want to say it's like almost like a holographic type screen, because I could never see, like, it wasn't like a flat screen or anything like that. I mean, it would just be on, and I could see what it was showing me. And so I would just kind of, like, I don't even know why I knew what to do, but I guess just because I'd done it so many times, I would just go from the corner where I would find myself, walk up onto the platform, stand in front of the screen. It would basically give me all this information. I would come back at the beginning. I had no idea what I was supposed to do with this information, but eventually after my near-death experience, they told me I needed to start sharing the information, helping other people, so I kind of tried to do that. And every time that, as soon as that would finish, the information would finish, I would wake up back in my house. And so, nothing to fear. I got very used to it, although it always contained a lot of death in it. It was just something I kind of just acclimated myself to, I think, over the years. But this time last year, there was a time that I had a precog dream, and it changed. And let me backtrack. About 2 months prior to that, or 3 months prior to that, my precog dreams started changing. I started getting terrorist attacks, false flag events, just really weird stuff that I'd never, ever gotten before. And it was even more accurate, and to the point that it was scaring people online that were following my page, because they were like, oh my God, is the end of the world coming? And I absolutely never, ever saw anything or were shown anything of the end of the world. So I didn't want to scare people, so I kind of stopped doing it. And all of a sudden, during this one, they show me all this stuff, and the screen goes off. And I just still kind of find myself here in this room. And I guess the nosy person that I am, since the screen goes off, I can now see beyond what would be the screen, and I can see what looks like to be two round, windows. So I get off the platform, I walk around, I walk over to the window, and when I look out the window, to my absolute surprise, I see what looks like to be space. I just see stars and things. I see what looks to be the sun, but we're so close that I had a lot of critical thinking, which is, again, has always made me think these aren't just dreams, So I'm having this thinking. I'm like, how in the world can we be so close to the sun, and I'm not feeling any heat? Then all of a sudden, I see what looks like, like an energy burst, like a solar flare shoot out, and it's going. I look to the right, and I can see it's going towards what looks like Earth. And just at the time as it releases, and I can see it kind of shooting out, these two windows actually close upon themselves. So now it's just like a metal. There's no sign that there was any kind of window there. And I'm kind of in shock. I'm trying to process this, and I'm thinking, the last place I don't even know where I ever even thought this place was that I was getting this information, but I know it sure as hell was not in space somewhere. So at that point, it ends. And so, no, actually it didn't. I walked over, and I'm trying to look around, because there's really not anything in there other than this platform and a few, looks like little screens and stuff. And I start thinking of the movie Star Trek, the series. And I'm like, man, this reminds me of one of the decks on their ship. So, in a lot of those, they would put their hand up on a location, and it would open the door. So why I thought about this at this time, I have no idea. But I go around and I put my hand up on the wall on this one specific place. It's not like there's a pad or anything. I just put it in this one place, and to my surprise, this door opens. And I look down to the left and to the right, and I could see really, really far that both sides the hallway were very long, and they have these little, I want to say the little neon lights that, that dotted both sides all the way up the walkways in both ways. And at that point, I got scared. And so I kind of jumped back, and then at that point, I'm back in my house. And I'm in full sleep paralysis. And was panicked, to be absolutely honest, because I had never... I was just laying there, and when you're in sleep paralysis, it takes... I've experienced for us, I know, you just kind of have to wait it out and try to move eventually something to get out of it, like a finger or something, and you'll break out of it. But during that time, all you really think about is what you just experienced. So I'm trying to process this, and so I really was having a hard time. And a couple of days later, so I actually contacted Renee Chavez, who is one of my lead investigators with my paranormal and UFO group, and I told him because I literally thought like I was going crazy. And he said, no, makes a lot of sense. So, all right, well, let's just see how things go. And I said, all right. And a few days later, I find myself in the precog dream. I'm there. This time the screen is on. I walk up there, but this time it's different because this time it's not anything about, things to come or anything. It is glimpses of me and my life from a young child all the way up to right now, and it was not anything good. It was every single bad thing, traumatic experience, just anything and everything I went through my life, and it was just, the screen was just going on. Now, mind you, like, a lot of the stuff I had was like years of counseling and stuff to get through, and all of a sudden I am, like, the emotions of all of these, seeing all these things is just bringing me back to this place. And I literally dropped to my knees, and I just started, crying and just yelling. I don't even know who, but I just kept saying, oh my gosh, you gotta stop. I don't understand what you want me to do. Like, I all you have to do is tell me. Like, I'll give whatever message or whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. I just don't understand. And at that moment, the whole screen just goes blank again. So I'm sitting there looking around the room again, and so, of course, my curiosity piques me. I guess it's the investigator in me, and so I go back to the wall, and I put my hand up, and the door opens again, and I look back out the hallway. I still don't see anybody. It's pretty, it's dark, but you can see that there's the walkways from both ways. So I decide that, and why I decided this, I have no idea, but I decided it would probably be a good idea for me to go explore and try to figure out where the hell I'm actually at. And we know the old saying, the curiosity kills the cat, right?
Yes, so, it does.
I should have already known, but, this is obviously is one of the sides to me that just fascinates people, because that's exactly how I am. I want, like, when everybody else is running, away from something, I'm running towards it to see what's going on. So I decided to go. I'm trying to figure out which way I should go. Should I go left or should I go right? I happen to be left-handed. And so whenever I have to make, it's like flipping a coin, whenever I have to decide, I always seem to choose the left. To me, the left is the right way to go. So I decided to go left. So I walked down the hallway, and believe me, it was a pretty long hallway. And there was nothing. I couldn't see any doors. I couldn't see anything. It was just a long hallway with just like metal inside, and until I get to the end, and it stops. There was like a wall, but then at this wall I could turn, and as I turn, I make a right, and right in front of me is a big door. It looked to me like a laboratory door. It had like a pad, where I would think was probably either hand scan, or it had a camera, so maybe an eye scan, I don't know, but you could tell that there was some security, ways to get into this thing, and it was a pretty hefty door. And so I'm thinking, okay, so if you've got security in here, I probably should not be here. So I turn to the right again, and now I am in front of this huge plate glass window, almost like a viewing area. And what I see are these little, like, square cubes of what look like human hybrid embryos in different stages of gestation. The ones on the bottom were the newest. The ones at the top were, the older ones. And as soon as I see this, I panic. Because, like, my brain is, like, running through things. Like, you're in space, you're probably on some kind of craft, there's hybrid, embryos here, I've done stories on this, like, this is not good, and I don't need to be here. So I decide I need to get out of here. First of all, now, thinking in hindsight, I don't even know how I thought I was going to get back to that room because the door, I remember, closed behind me. So I don't know. I had to figure out where the spot was to get me back in the first place. So I kind of screwed myself. But as I go to run around the corner to the left, I literally run smack dab into two men. And they look like they are like in almost military SWAT gear all along it. I mean, they had like a helmet with a visor. An interesting thing I noticed, like right away I started trying to look at the uniform to see if there was any patches or any identifying marks. I mean, again, as an investigator all these years, like this is how my brain is thinking. So I'm trying to think, like, if I'm really experiencing this, I need to, like, pay attention. So but they don't have anything on there. They're all black uniforms. But something that I kept thinking was really strange was that they did have what looked like automatic machine guns or some type of gun, like a rifle gun, over their shoulder on their back that I could see, which then as well started making me think, like, why in the world, like, if we're on some crap, why in the world would they need guns? Like, right? Like, I wouldn't understand that. And so I look, and so the visors go to right below their eyes, like the bridge of their nose. And the thing that I noticed was that from their jaw and the bottom part of not everything looked exactly the same. It looked like they looked like mannequins almost, the skin. And they grabbed me, one by one arm and the other by the other arm. I mean, I literally ran smack dab into the two of them just standing there. And before I was fighting, and before I knew it, all I know is that they put something up to my shoulder, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in a whole different room. Now I wake up, and I am in what looks like to be some kind of medical room. I'm definitely laying on something hard. It seemed like I was kind of pretty elevated, although I wasn't really sure because as I'm laying there, a couple of things were strange. One thing is I couldn't move. Now I'm thinking back to all my research, and a lot of people who, are abducted or something, have contact like that, can't move when they're on the table. So that kind of like freaks me out. But I start looking around, and I realize it's not like I'm paralyzed. I'm literally like bound down. I'm tied down onto this table. So now I'm thinking, well, this doesn't make any sense because, if it was alien, like, they don't need to tie you down. But I'm in there by myself, so I have no idea. And so I'm trying to, like, process all this, and about a few moments later, the doors open, and I see 4 men come in white doctor's jackets and masks and the hats and the whole 9 yards. And they come in, and they're huddled up, and they're talking, and they're looking at me, and they're talking. And behind them come these 4 little grays. Now, most of the time you think of grays as like little small ones, maybe 3 feet. But the thing is I felt like on this table was very elevated, and still with it being very elevated, I could see like their head, at least from like the bottom of their jaw up. So then I thought, and then when I was looking at them compared to, I guess, the doctors in there, they seemed to be taller than 3 feet. So that was, again, was a little strange. I was trying to process that. And the grays went around my table, and literally this one just kind of looked in, like, I felt like he looked into my soul. It was crazy. But all that I could hear subliminally was to tell me to, relax, and it was going to be okay to relax and not to worry. And, of course, I'm like not even trying to listen because you have no idea what a panic state I am in because, again, I have actual critical thinking, and I'm trying to process all this, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, like, do I ever go back home? And, like, how in the world could I be coming to this place for all these years and, never venturing out and knowing that I'm here, and how did they not know that I'm there? So I've got all these questions, and just about the time that I do that, 2 of the doctors walk out, and a few minutes later, they walk back in, and one of them is carrying a tray, and it's got a cover over it. Now, I used to be a nurse, so as soon as I see that, that's a sterile setting. So I'm already, again, thinking back to my interviews with abductees in the past that have had medical procedures done, and this is the same kind of recollection that they have and that they report. So now I'm super panicking. Now, I grew up Catholic, and so, again, I struggled with that, especially having psychic abilities and seeing UFOs and just all the different things. They didn't think too kindly of me. And then I was left-handed, so they were, convinced that I was, had a demon in me and all these different interesting things. So over the years, I really got away from the whole church. I'm much more spiritual. I believe in God and all of that. But, I would always say, do I believe he's some, white guy with a beard, that floats around up there and looks down on us? I don't really know. I don't know if that's the case. So, but I do believe that, there's a higher power and a God. And so, over the years, I've said that so many times that I don't know why that during this time, now I'm panicking. And the only thing that I could think of to do was to pray. So I start the prayer off by, God, I hope you're listening. I know that over the years I've said that you're not some white guy with a beard, and I really never should have said that because I really don't know if that's true or not, and I really don't care. All I care about is if you're really there and you really do care about me and you're listening, please help me. And so at that time, I'm kind of waiting and nothing's happening, so I start reciting all the prayers that I could possibly remember from Catholic school. So I start reciting them, and all of a sudden I see one of these doctors come around, him and this other guy, to the left side of me, and the other two were on the right side of me. And, well, the one with the tray was on my right side. And so I'm looking, but I can't move my head, but I'm looking over to the right, and I see them uncover, and they pick this thing off, actually up off of the tray. And I really wasn't sure exactly what it was. Seemed almost like I don't know. All I know is that, when they put it up to my ear, I could literally feel it crawling, like a spider, crawling into my ear. And at that moment, I woke up again, sleep paralysis, an hour, a jaw orange, completely open. And I had to sit there and think about all this for not only that hour, but for the rest of the day. It had me so, I don't know. The next day, I was so stressed out that I had contemplated leaving my group. I had written them a resignation letter and I told a few of the people that I was leaving, and they were just what? I was just not myself. I didn't want to do the radio shows anymore. I felt like a fraud, that all these years I had been talking about all of these different topics in these fields, and people looked to me, for answers. And here I felt like everything I thought I knew, I didn't know a thing. It literally sent me into such a panic that I literally did not feel myself. I was having bad headaches. I kept having this buzzing in my ear. There was a high-pitched buzz. And I literally became suicidal, within 24 hours of all this happening. And I literally got in my car and decided, I needed to go and drive off of a cliff, to stop all this. I couldn't take anymore. And literally right before I was going to go, I ended up pulling over and calling my co-host of my other show, Renee, and he literally talked me through it. And literally, I've known a regression hypnotherapist for a year. She used to be part of my group before her practice took off and she became so popular. And she works with a lot of abductees and contactees with regression hypnotherapists. And she does a specific type. It's a third party, so you don't come back with a traumatic, memories if you encounter them during your session. And she had wanted to do regression on me for a long time to just try to get some answers with the other stuff that was going on with me. And I just wasn't open to it. And all I know is the next day I ended up calling her, and I could, like, for a week, I couldn't even talk. Every time I tried to even tell this story, it was just so real, still there in the moment to me, that I would just break down crying. I literally thought I was going crazy. And it wasn't until I actually started reaching out and talking to a lot of people in the same field that I'm in that I realized, no, I'm not going crazy, but there's definitely some different things going on. So for a long story, I mean, yes, I think that absolutely, the paranormal and ufology, like all this stuff is all interconnected. Even the Bigfoot stuff. I mean, I've had a black-eyed kid and black-eyed adult experience, after a UFO abductee case we took on. I mean, I've had all kinds of crazy things. So, I mean, I definitely think it's connected. At least for me, I know it is.
Did you breathe through that entire thing?
That's what happens when you're a radio show host, that you usually just do a show all by yourself.
I know. I hear you. I hear you all too well in regards to that.
Otherwise, it would have been a 3-hour show.
I asked you originally about the tie-in between the paranormal and the ufological. Why do you think in your heart or your research that so few have made the connection?
Over the years, I think that depending on a person's experience and what's the most prominent experience they have. So if it's paranormal, people kind of get into paranormal and they kind of discount anything else. And I saw that in the same thing with the UFO field, was that they believed in the UFOs and abduction and all that kind of stuff and aliens, but they didn't believe in spirits and ghosts and the paranormal. It was really weird. And then you got the cryptozoology people who believed in Bigfoot and all of the cryptozoology stuff. They didn't believe in any of the other stuff. So it was really hard. So I think that people kind of just stayed within their own field and didn't want to branch out. But again, I think it's with shows like yours and mine and so many others out there that, and people coming forward and sharing their stories and realizing that even though we all share that same experience, that once we go through something, we think that we must be the only one that's ever gone through that because we've never heard anybody else say that. And it's about the moment that you share your story, somebody can connect with it. And then you're like, oh, okay. Well, now I'm getting somewhere. Maybe I can figure this out. But, just like your other guest was saying, once you finally feel like you kind of encounter something and you overcome it, and then you realize, okay, well, here's some answers to some of the questions that I've had, it opens this Pandora's box of 1,000 other questions, at least for me, again. And it's so my mind is always constantly wondering. I mean, I'm in this field to help other people, but 99% of us get into this field or even reporting on it because of our own personal experiences. So, I think that that's starting to bridge the gap a little bit more and making people look outside the box.
So getting back to your experience then, when you started realizing what was happening to you, did you ever hear of the term MILABs or military abduction?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've had all kinds of guests that have talked to it. Everybody from Laura Eisenhower to Misha Johnston, just all kinds of guests that were part of those programs. And in depth. So again, I would have never, ever, 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 ever thought that in all the years that I've been researching and interviewing people about all this, and was just so fascinated by it, that the fascination could be a little bit more personal than I even understood. So, because I don't ever remember ever being, other than the precog dreams going to that room, I never had any other memories of leaving that room. But when I did my regression, I actually had memories of being there quite frequently and going throughout there visiting hybrid children that were there, different things. So, like, the reason I knew where to go was I knew my way around there. And that was kind of strange to me, because I didn't remember anything except for these two strange times when everything changed.
So when you tell this experience, and I realize you haven't shared it very much, but when you tell this experience, or you hear other investigators basically saying, I don't think there's a tie-in between paranormal, ufological, extraterrestrial. I don't believe that there is anything cognizant between the two. How do you respond to that? Because there are so many different arguments and points that people continuously, blast throughout social media. And, I mean, we've talked about this before, publicly and privately, about how absolutely cutthroat this paranormal industry is. How do you deal with it, Christina? Because I know you're an outspoken woman.
Yeah. I very much am. And, I say what's on my mind. This field is just hard in general to be in. But something I learned a lot, because I'm very passionate in the things, so I used to debate people left and right about different topics and all day long. But something that I learned over time is that I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm starting to see that it's really people's personal experiences that change their mind. And a lot more people are having personal experiences. And a lot more people are finally talking about them and feeling comfortable enough because, again, of shows like yours and mine where people listen and there's an audience there that is very supportive and they're not going to be heckled or made fun of. It's just, that's your story and you're getting out. So a lot more people are feeling a lot more brave about, coming out. But at the beginning, when I had this experience, one of my biggest fears was, oh my gosh, like I have a hard enough time that, I'm a psychic in the paranormal. But now, here I'm going to say I've had this abduction experience, and I've always talked about my precog dreams, but, I was like, oh, now they're going to think that, I want more attention, so now I'm going to go the ufology route and, say I'm an abductee. So I was very leery about how I would be judged in the paranormal field. I really didn't feel like I would be judged in the ufology field. I felt like I had enough of some really top people in the field that could give me some answers, or I could tell them the story and it was either to them it was going to make sense or it was going to sound like yes. And I was really, the different people I went to, I was really hoping that they would say, Christine, I think you just had a really bad dream, and because none of this makes any kind of sense. But that was not the response I got. In fact, I got a lot of things that came forward in my regression that I didn't realize, but was very validated. And in fact, it was kind of strange because it was so strange that when this all happened, I drew a picture of what this platform looked like and what this room looked like. And I had it with me when I went to the regression for whatever reason. And I said, oh, can I show you? I drew a picture of it. I was trying to explain. I said, well, I drew a picture of it. I think I brought it. So I pulled it out and I showed it to her. And she's like, oh, my gosh, I'm not going to believe this. And she had been drawing this other room as well. And I don't know if it was something based off of her or one of her clients, but it was almost identical to what this room where I was at. So it was interesting. Like I said, I got some answers, but it opened a whole Pandora's box of more questions of why, what's the reason, but now, again, in hindsight, looking back at a lot of the things that have happened, it makes more sense. A lot of very personal things happened throughout my life, and like being pregnant and then all of a sudden not pregnant, but yet there's no signs of any miscarriage. Things like that. So,
do you believe then that maybe some of those incubators or embryos that you saw were yours?
I don't know if mine, in the regression, I did realize that I had gone there many times to visit lots of hybrid children. So that part, from that, I kind of take away that obviously from other people that have reported similar things, that they are their children and they bring back the human parent to basically, kind of bond with them because they're unable to, have that human emotion and that human bond. So, but I've never had any recollection of doing that. And so, yeah, and I don't know why when I saw the vats of the embryos that it frightened. I mean, it gave me a fear, like you just have no idea. At that moment, like everything, I was so calm and just kind of like wandering around exploring, and it just went from like 0 to 100 really quick, and I was like panicked, like, oh crap, like wrong place, not supposed to be here. And how I knew that or why I knew that, obviously, again, through what I found out through the regression, I'd been there many times, so maybe I wasn't supposed to be down there, but it was definitely an interesting experience, and it's really stuck with me. I still really don't know what to make of it all. I still actually have the precog dreams, and I have not had another situation where I've left that room or attempted to leave that room, and I'm still just getting, stuff that's happening usually within a week or so of me putting it out. So I have kind of, for a while, was wondering, now it completely changes everything. Like, am I being used? Because if it would have just been all like alien beings, it would have been one thing. Or if it would have just been all military people, it would have been another thing. But the fact that they were combined, I don't know, that to me was more concerning, I think, than anything else with it. And still to this day, it's like just, talking about it just feels strange. I'm so used to talking about the paranormal and all my paranormal experiences, and this is just such a new and still so raw. I mean, this just happened like towards the latter part of the year. In fact, probably like a month before I saw you at the Concrete Paracon.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't.
Should have stopped feeding me tequila so we could have talked.
Whew, no, I really wasn't. I wasn't ready to talk about it then. It took a little while. Like, it's been kind of like a process, because I still, as I said, I mentioned a little bit about my regression because we had talked about it on the show, that I had finally agreed to go on when Lori actually came on my show. And so we agreed to it and we set it up, and everybody wanted to know like what I was going to find out. And so I did talk a little bit about it, not as in depth as I talked about it here. I mean, I've only told a handful of people the in-depth details, but again, it's whether I understand the experience or not, that's the experience. So like, now I'm just trying to understand it, I mean, why, and these messages, why am I getting them? Why of everybody, why do I get them? And why do I continue to get them? And then I didn't want to put anything out because I was wondering, like, was I being manipulated? Was I being used? Because here I think I always knew like the information I was getting wasn't going to save the world, but my mindset was they're giving me a glimpse of what's to come, and my job is to put the information out so that even if it saves one life or one person is prepared and they don't lose their life, it was worth it. At least, getting to me. So I started questioning that because I don't want to be putting information out like because I'm being manipulated somehow on some agenda. So I still have the precog dreams. I don't talk about them as much anymore. Since all that, I'll post certain ones that are really, really strong, but I don't know. I'm still myself trying to kind of process and figure this all out.
Do you ever think you'll get the true answer that you need? And I asked that because during the show, Nancy was asking me about my own experiences and what I want out of them. What do I wish? You know, almost like a hindsight being 2020. And my whole idea behind it was I would love to have that close encounter again. You know, whether it's of the UFO, whether it's of the extraterrestrial, where I would walk up to it next time. Do you wish you could have more clarity in regards to understanding more? Do you expect to find out the truth?
I would love to, and that's what I'm searching to do. And I think that investigative side of me, like I just have to know. I mean, it's like I feel like it's my purpose. Like I'm supposed to. It's like a puzzle that my whole life has been, and so I've learned something from each thing that I've gone through, but I don't know that I'm ever going to understand it fully. But I would like to at least have a little bit more understanding of what it's all about, because I haven't had like any direct contact. Now I do know that I do have an association with a group of beings that are some kind of a council. From what I understand, what I kept calling them in the regression was that their names were the Watchers. And so I would love if I could like do it over, like when I've been in front of them, like to like ask questions, like to get information, because everything has just been kind of given to me, and I really don't, it's all one-sided. So, you know, just get the information that they want, but I've never had like that I can remember, and I've only had one session of regression, and they don't really know that I want another one. And although I think it would be very interesting, I don't think I would be afraid to meet any of the alien beings and try to communicate with them. What I'm afraid of is the other people. And I don't know why.
The human side of this.
Yes. And I feel a very military side because, again, like I still don't believe that the two guys that I ran into in the military garb were human. Like, again, like when I looked, I was paying close attention, and they looked exactly the same, and their skin did not look like our skin. It looked like, almost like mannequin-like. And so, but I don't know, but everything that they had on, I mean, they act like a human, they move like a human. They didn't say anything to me the whole time. So I don't know about any of that. But they were in military, you know, like garb / riot gear type stuff. And so again, I don't really, it's like being on Battlestar Galactica or something, these strange, you know, uniforms, but they were all black. I know that.
Oh, wow. Indeed. I mean, that is very, very stressful. You know, because at any time, and we only got about 5-6 minutes left with you here, Christina. At any time, and I realize you being in this field, that it's easier for you than others who have had this type of experience. But at any time, did you feel like you were all alone? That you felt that you were just the only person in the world this was happening to, and, you know, you wanted to keep quiet on it because maybe you were just not sure whether or not you should go public with this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, that was one of the reasons when I saw you. Like, it had happened not too long before I, you know, went out there. And I was having to still try to make public appearances and do speaking engagements and do my radio show live all over the place and travel and act like none of this was going on. And, like, my anxiety was through the roof. It still is. Like, I've never in my life had problems with anxiety, like, or panic attacks. But, since this experience, it's been super heightened. I mean, the anxiety, like, even when I started, it was kind of interesting that you were saying about the pulse, feeling like a pulse when you get ready to tell your story. And every time I try to talk about this, I get this horrible, horrible headache every single time. And I've also felt like where I can feel my pulse in my head. So, I don't know. Do I think I have an implant? I don't know. It still just baffles me because, I have such a vivid memory of this thing literally crawling into my ear, into my brain. The only thing I think of is, some crazy horror movie where, some spider, goes and crawls in somebody's ear and, into their brain. And I woke up and, my head was hurting and, I literally... Like I said, I felt like I had a nervous breakdown. I mean, I was not myself, and anybody who talked to me was saying, it wasn't me. I'm somebody who's very confident. I don't really care what other people think, things like that, and I was the complete opposite. I just didn't want to interact with people. I didn't want to talk to people. Very, very strange. But again, the experience is what it is, so it's just trying to regroup from all of it, try to piece together everything and understand what it all means. Welcome to my life.
That's a very powerful statement you just said. Welcome to my life. Honestly, that those 4 words just kind of actually just set me back. How do you live?
Day by day. I mean, these things have been happening for so long. It's just part of my life. I can't stop it, And I don't know even at this point if I wanted to. Because as much as I fear some of this stuff, I crave the answers. And I can't do that without exploring it.
Is it an addiction for you? I find that I am addicted to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I eat, drink, and sleep and dream, paranormal and ufology. That's all I do. Radio shows, speaking, that is my life. So yeah, it is very addicting. The part of trying to kind of figure out what's going on in your own life vicariously while helping other people deal with their own situations is kind of rewarding for me. So yeah, it's kind of addicting.
Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggest thing that I am seeing right now is that, my addiction to this show and my addiction to trying to bring out these topics, no matter what they are under the paranormal field, I find is so involved in a daily basis. Even when I go to my daytime career, which I will be up in 7 hours for, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what's more important to me, even though I'm not getting paid off of this, and my other job is what keeps the roof over my head. So I mean, I feel for you. I do, because I'm in your shoes. In a different way, I'm in your shoes.
And you can't shut it down, and you can't walk away.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that you can do is just deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I don't know what else you can do.
No, but at least we know we're not alone. And I think that, of all things, that's the one thing that makes people feel a little bit better, is that when they think that they're the only person and they can't talk about it, they can't get any feedback, they can't vent about it, anything like that, it's very, very hard, to internalize all that stuff. So, again, having radio shows, having support groups out there, having all these different avenues to be able to connect with other people, like-minded people or with the same experiences, is a great, great benefit. So keep up with what you're doing.
Well, that's what we got to do. We are survivors, my friend. We are survivors. Right. And that's what we got to continue doing.
Yep, never a victim. Always a survivor.
Exactly. Exactly. Why don't you take a minute here to tell our audience where they can find out more information about your birthday party in Las Vegas coming up in March, as well as your radio shows on the United Public Radio Network.
Yeah, we're going to be doing all kinds of interesting stuff for my birthday. I have a couple locations that it's going to be a birthday week. I think it might even be a birthday month. But everybody can be able to follow me or check out my shows. Paranormal Connections, it's Monday nights on the UPRN Talk Radio Network from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then on Thursday nights, formerly Alien, UFOs, and Beyond radio show, which is now Top Secret News radio show. Thursday night, same time, same network. So check us out. You can also check us out on Instagram, on Twitter, and Facebook, and both shows have their own pages on Facebook, so you can check it out for archives.
And you're going to be a part of a new feature we have starting in March. We haven't announced it yet, but you're going to be a part of it. I'm excited.
I know.
Christina, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Space Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking and rolling to Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot, the official music of Space Out Radio, rocks us in and out of every single show right here on the mighty SOR. Tomorrow night, the crypto guru Ronald Murphy is back. Yes, we're talking cryptids. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. We get going at spaceoutradio.com. We want to thank all of you taking part on Twitter, in all of the chat rooms who follow us. It's almost time to get some sleep, people. We're almost there. Our eyes are half closed. Do me a favor. Spread the word. Share the posts. Tell a friend. That's how we're going to grow this. We're getting bigger. We're getting better. We want to own the night. And we need your help to do that. Thank you so much for tuning in to Space Out Radio. I'm Dave Scott. Have a good one. Throw a snowball if you're in a snowy area. It'll always make you feel good. See ya. I'm out.